For more debates, updates, and bonus content, sign up at thebigconversation.show.
All the woke morality is simply about you guys are wrong and you guys are wrong and you're full of hate and you're this and you're that. And there is no sense that if you repent, we'll forgive you. No. You just have to grovel. And it's a morality of... I hate to use the word Pharisaism because actually that's a slur on the first century Pharisees, but that's what in the popular discourse it's about. It's about we've got this right and we're making up new laws as we go along, as Douglas has said. And you lot are wrong and you're staying wrong and we're glad you're wrong and we're going to rub your noses in the dirt. And it seems to me that's rather like certain revolutions. I mean, revolutions that eat their own children, where the French Revolution notoriously ended up decapitating quite a lot of people who had been among the leaders of the early movement. And it's more complicated than that.
It strikes me that in everything you've said there, that in a sense, though, just even if we are in a quote unquote post-Christian world, we're not in a less religious world in the sense that these ideologies become quite religious. But not in a very grace-filled kind of religion. And you've spoken about that yourself, Douglas, that there's that kind of aspect to the way people then grasp certain identities and certain causes and ideologies. And that becomes their sort of their identity, their religion. And I suppose this is the problem, isn't it? We are meaning-seeking, story-driven creatures. And if it's not going to be the story of Christianity, it's going to be another story. And the question is, can we live together with these very different stories which often bump up against each other?
Yes,
but I think that's...
Sorry, Douglas, go ahead and then Tom respond.
Oh, okay. I think this is true. I've often thought, I hesitate to say this in front of such a distinguished theologian, but I've often thought that one of the interesting points about what Jesus teaches is that much of it, as Tom Wright well knows, much of it you can find in some of the contemporary Greek thought. Some of the thought is around the Roman world, but nothing prepares for the demand to love your enemy. It seems to me so completely revolutionary and so completely counterintuitive that it has and I think we recognize, if I may say so, I think we recognize in our era as well, with awe when we see this being practiced. That's why I come back to this, that it's not just about missing a trick, it's missing an opportunity to display your faith. When people see actual forgiveness, it is, I think, among the most humbling, most moving things that you can ever witness as a human being. There was an example a couple of years ago when at a church in the South of America, that was very unusual, but appalling crime when a young white crazed sort of white supremacist of some kind walked into a church and shot some of the worshippers. And the next day there was an interview with, it was a black congregation, and the next day there was an interview with one of the families, and the mother of somebody who just lost her son said that she forgave the killer of her son. I thought this a couple of years ago. I was doing a tour with somebody who became a friend, Cornel West, Professor Cornel West of Harvard, who by his own definition is a revolutionary Christian socialist. So we have a lot to disagree about. I was very struck. Cornel always refers to people as brother this, brother that. Some people think it's an annoying tick of his. I rather like it. But I was absolutely bowled over one day when he referred to this shooting. And he said, that brother who went into that church and shot up that congregation. And I was so moved and so amazed that he would refer even to this person who had done this unforgivable thing by any analysis, an unforgivable thing, would still refer to this man as his brother. It seemed to, and it seems to me this is an example of living and displaying a Christian ethic, which, if it was just seen a bit more, would have a profound impression in the world.
I totally agree with Douglas there. And again, I want to stress that the problem with that is that you can't just do it by you and me saying, and anyone else who's listening, by the way, you should be going out and getting on with it, though we all should, and it is difficult, but yes. But it can only ultimately become instantiated in a community and in the settled habits of somebody's life when you have at the heart of the faith the story of Jesus going to the cross to defeat the powers of evil. Because without that, then forgiveness is a lovely idea for other people to practice, but too hard for me, as it were. But if Jesus has actually dealt with evil in his death, whatever that means, and you have to have lots of discussions about how that plays out, of course, then who am I to go on actually holding it against this person or that person? And that's why forgiveness then has as its positive side reconciliation. Forgiveness shouldn't just leave you with, as it were, a zero bank balance. It ought then to open the way for reconciliation. That's, of course, what Archbishop Desmond Tutu has done so spectacularly. And I know South Africa is still a very difficult and dangerous place. But when I was young, we were all talking about the coming bloodbath in South Africa. And the fact that there wasn't a bloodbath and that there was a peaceful transition of power was largely due to the fact that Tutu and a lot of others were going and praying with leading politicians, reading the Bible with them. And then when the transition happened, having that amazing commission of truth and reconciliation, with white thugs and black thugs confessing their sins, seeking reconciliation. That should still be sending a shockwave around the world, both in Northern Ireland and in the Middle East. Heaven help us what's going on at the moment, and so on and so on. This is the only way to live, ultimately. But you can only even glimpse a chance of doing it if you've got Jesus himself in the middle. I'm sorry to sound like a cracked record, but perhaps you would expect a theologian always to come
it's
back
important.
and talk about Jesus.
If I say it comes back to the point. It's the most important thing to do as a theologian, and as a Christian, and it is, as I say, it is an enormous relief to hear it.